Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how top experts sell their ideas, their value, and their services. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees. All right, my friends, she's back. You may remember her as episode 247. However, I remember her as the awesome and amazing Judy Hoberman. Welcome back to the show.
I'm so excited. 247. Yikes. I want to be like, I don't know, every other week is what I want to do.
Yeah, well, we always have our favorite people back, so be careful. This could just be number 2 of a whole long series that we have going on here.
Works for me.
So for folks that might not have heard our previous chat, give them the lay of the land. Tell us what you do. Tell us about the business. Give us the backstory of how you came to do what you're doing, and then we'll dive into the good stuff from there.
So I was born in a hospital. No.
Very nice.
So the truth of the matter is I actually have been an entrepreneur my entire life. I was corporate for a few years, and through my many different various positions, I ended up in financial services, and I loved it. I was excited, and people would say, excited, financial services, kind of an oxymoron, but I did. I loved it. People would say to me when I was booking appointments on the phone, they would say, I don't care what you're selling, but you're so excited. I want to meet you. And I never got stood up, just as a side note. Anyway, so I went into the corporate position, and I realized that I was missing something. It wasn't really where I needed to be. So I decided to leave. And when I left, I sat myself down and said, if I was starting all over, what would I have wanted? And I would have wanted somebody that looked like me, not physically looked like me, but a female that would have been able to, guide me, take a left turn instead of a right, not do the work for me, but help me to celebrate my wins, but also to kick me in the pants when I needed it, hold me accountable. I didn't have that, so I became that woman. So my company, Selling in a Skirt, started out just like that. And, what I do is we empower professional women in sales. We help women reach the level of success at whatever their definition is. And we make sure that they have the tools that they need. And my mission has always been help one woman a day. So when one woman shows up, I'm there. And it's very difficult for women to ask for help. But when I say my mission is one woman a day and they raise their hands, it's a very humbling experience for me. So that's who I am. And my goal is to make sure that we understand that women want to be treated equally, not identically.
Yes. I was just listening to I don't know if it was a podcast or something, but they said from an entrepreneurial perspective, the very best kind of business that you could possibly start is a business that you wish you had when you had that problem, or you had those obstacles, right, or you had those challenges in your own life or in your own career, because now you know that so intimately well that you can provide that service, that guidance, that mentorship that you wish you had, but you did not, coming up through whatever experience it was. And so that's the business that you're in. That's the business that I'm in. And apparently we get the A in why did you start your business? Because this guy said, oh, that's the very best kind of business.
And it works.
And it works. Absolutely. Tell us about the empire as it stands today. What are the different revenue streams? What are the different investable opportunities in your world?
So I tried to make sure that I had something at different levels, because when you're in sales, there's all different levels that you're in. There's all different industries that you're in. So we have, basic sales training. And it's interesting to me that a lot of women in leadership, actually men in leadership as well, at the leadership level, have never had sales training ever. And they're responsible for sales training. And I just did one recently where no one had sales training. And, the questions that they were asking were the questions that I asked when I first started out. So I decided, let's just open up the floor and see what the challenges are. And that's what we did. We addressed all the challenges. So we do sales training. We do executive coaching. We do one-on-one and group coaching. I also have the roundtable. The roundtable is where a group of women get together once a month, and they are able to, just share what's going on and ask for advice and so on and so forth. But everything I do is very confidential and very intentional. So I don't invite people to come in just because they're female. There really needs to be a reason why they're showing up, because as well as I do, people have to be able to believe in what they're doing and want to be part of it, not just to say you're a part of it. So, we do things like that. That's basically what I do.
So let's break down, because this is really fascinating, and I'm totally on board with this, although I couldn't describe it nearly as well as you can. Women, especially women in sales leadership, have different challenges, other challenges, special challenges that men, both in sales and in sales leadership, do not.
Right.
And part of it is imposter syndrome, self-worth, self-esteem, all the kind of the programming, if you will, bunny quotes around programming. Talk about when you work with women sales leaders, what are some of the gaps? What are some of the challenges? What are some of the missing pieces that they come to you for? And then how do you diagnose that and start to fill those gaps?
Well, I think one of the biggest things, and it's been forever, but definitely over the last few years, it's about connection. It's a basic human need. And we need that more than ever, now more than ever, because the truth of the matter is that women are natural connectors. And we do have three needs that we want. We want the need to belong, the need to contribute, and the need to be recognized. And so when you are a female in a leadership position and they treat everything as the cookie cutter, one size fits all, that's not what they want. We want to be recognized as being intelligent, as bringing some, goodness to the table, and to being considered valuable. So we also want a safe, confidential space where we can share, where we can learn, where we can grow personally and professionally. And especially true for women at that level, because what we want to do is we want to be surrounded by other women in the same journey that are struggling with the same things, but are also recognized for the same things, where they can be celebrated. And so we don't do that. We don't do that for ourselves. Essentially, what we're looking for as women is a personal board of directors. That's what we really want. And I've done surveys for hundreds and hundreds of women. And what I heard more than anything is women are looking for real sales training, real leadership training. And what do you think their biggest challenge is? Leading themselves. They're looking for the dynamics of time management. They're looking for the ability to be resilient and bounce back. And they're looking to evict that imposter syndrome. And I think that that's really important that you even mentioned it, because I don't care what level you're at. And really, men and women suffer through it. But women, at the most inopportune time, this little thing comes bouncing back and says, who do you think you are? Why are you doing this? So I think those are some of the things that women are looking for. And they want to be authentically themselves and happy.
So very, very important. And this doesn't happen overnight, right? So obviously there are clients that bring you in to speak, and a speech is great. Speech is awesome. Judy loves speaking. Hopefully you can afford her. Hopefully her calendar's open. There's a keynote speech. There is traditional kind of training, 1-day training, 2-day training, etc. Then there's this magic of this ongoing relationship, right? Ongoing coaching, ongoing mentorship, situational highs and lows, rain or shine, happy or sad, life gets in the way. Talk about the difference between a sales keynote speech that you could give, a sales training that's kind of a once and done or, episodic, versus the value of this longer term kind of ongoing, consistent repetition, reinforcement, and application that I know is part of some of your programs?
So that's a really good question. When you do a keynote, everybody is there. I mean, some people are engaged, some people aren't. That's just the way it is. But when you do a keynote, what happens after they walk out the door is they go back to real life. And whatever they just heard was amazing until, somebody calls from home or, the school or the school nurse or whatever. I always do with my keynotes, I do this all the time, is I offer another webinar or something 30 days later. And so there is the ability to at least keep that message going. Not everybody, takes it, which is interesting because it's part of the investment, but it's something that I offer. So that's the first thing. A training is also the same kind of feeling. You're giving them some good stuff. Some people think they have to change everything that they're doing, which you don't. But, it's good. It is really good because it's like the entree into it. But what's better than anything is when you do something on an ongoing basis, because you have these people, whether male, female, or a combination, when you have this and you have them for a long period of time. What I love about it is that you have the ability to watch things change. Now, there's something called the lonely leader, and those are people at a certain level. And a lot of women struggle with this because they're looking for community. They're looking for connection and collaboration. And when you put this all together in that space, they also have the ability to evict the imposter syndrome. They're able to take some of those challenges and struggles and talk about it. When you're involved with a cohort of women, you have that space that's exclusive. It's by invitation only, and it's curated with women at the same level. So they understand you and where you are, and they get you. And that's what's really important about it. And it's not one and done. It's for a period of time. A lot of times it's for a year or longer, because you're able to discuss the things that are really important. And if something comes up, you're there. It's not, oh, I don't have anybody to talk to or whatever. So I think that's a big difference.
Holy smokes, so much value in this episode. Listen, if you are loving what you're hearing, feel free to download, subscribe, tell a friend, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to The Selling Show. Now, back to the interview.
I'm also curious, people say, well, no, listen, we have a great sales manager. We have a great sales management team. They have plenty of support in-house. Mm-hmm. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Talk about internal mentorship, because I know that this is something that sometimes people, ask you for. How can we instill coaching skills, mentoring skills in a sales leader? And you mentioned that they haven't had sales training. Have they had any kind of mentoring training or coaching training?
A lot of times, no. A lot of times they haven't. A lot of times they're put into a position because they are the next in line. It's almost like, you're dating someone and the next logical step is to get married. Well, here you have a position. Next logical step is to promote you to the VP of sales or whatever. And it's unfortunate because, a couple of things can happen. First of all, I know for me, I wasn't asked to be promoted. I was promoted. And if somebody had asked me, would I have taken the position? Not sure. But if I didn't take it, I wouldn't be asked again. So you have to remember that a lot of times you take this because there may not be another opportunity for you. That's number one. Number two, you might not be ready for that position itself, and there's nothing in between. So now you're put into a position, but nobody's training you to be in that position. When I was made an agency manager, I did not get any training. Here's the training I did get. We had Federal Express that would deliver our supplies every morning. And one Monday morning, when he brought the supplies to me, he handed me an invoice for a check. I'm like, what is this for? He said, your supplies. I'm like, I don't pay for supplies. He said, I don't know. I just got this. So I called supplies and they said, oh, congratulations, you're an agency manager. That was my training. Okay. So now I'm in a position where I have to recruit, I have to retain, I have to motivate, I have to do all this. I have no clue. Okay. So that's another piece. The third is that maybe you are ready for it. Maybe you have the qualities. Maybe everything is good. But then who do you talk to? Who do you have this conversation with that, this is not going the way I thought, or this is going even better than I thought, whatever. So I think that there's different pieces to the puzzle, but internally, a lot of times they don't have the time or the resources. And sometimes it's better having somebody externally coming in. So they're there's no judgment and there's no preconceived notion that, well, this one is better than this one. So there's all different pieces of that puzzle. And I know that when I come in, they breathe. They just breathe because they're not listening to somebody that has the position, who is already, drinking the Kool-Aid that they don't want to drink, whatever it is. And they're excited that there's somebody from the outside coming in. So
I'm also curious, talk about that outsider status, because sometimes, I'm sure this has happened to you. I know it's happened to me on several occasions. The person who hires us calls us aside after an especially good training or mastermind session or whatever and says, Judy, I've been telling them that for years, but they had to hear it from you, because when they hear it from you, it has this external validation. So talk about folks that maybe totally on board with this and they love your message and they totally believe in the coaching and the mentoring and the development of their sales leaders. They've tried to do it in-house. Why does sometimes that outside perspective mean so much more?
It's only because it's somebody different. It isn't coming from inside. It's like your parents tell you something all the time, but so-and-so's mother tells you something. You're like, oh my goodness, that's like, I remember when I gave up my agencies to go corporate, and I was telling them the same thing all the time. This is how you sell and this is how you blah, 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 blah. The person that took my position would say the same thing and they weren't listening. When I came in from corporate, all of a sudden it was like, oh my goodness, that's like the best thing since sliced bread. They've heard it 1,000 times, but for some reason it carries more weight. You have more credibility because you're not inside and you haven't heard what everybody thinks about you. You're coming from the outside, new perspective, open mind, and you're bringing them something that they might have heard it, but it just sounds different and it means more. And so all of a sudden you're watching numbers grow, you're watching people succeed more, you're watching people stay because they have this ability to have somebody from the outside that's coming in and providing that magic or whatever they want to call it. I can't even put that into words of why that happens, but it happens all the time. Oh, I've said that, so many times. And I always say to them, you know what? It's the same thing happens to me. So don't worry about it. Let's do this together. Let's partner together and make sure that we're giving the same message. Because the last thing you want is for them to be threatened by you and then undermine you. And so I always say that empowered women empower women. Confident women are there to support each other. They're not intimidated or threatened by another strong, confident woman. We now join forces and we now work together. And then all of a sudden they calm down also. They don't take it personally. That's just the way it is. And they're good with it.
Yeah, for sure. I also want to just go back to something that you said about leadership training versus sales leadership training, because leadership of any kind is tough on its own, has its own hornet's nest of challenges and opportunities and obstacles. When we're talking about sales leadership, there is kind of that extra layer. And I want to separate this from sales training, right? Mm-hmm. So people say, oh, well, Judy, no, we're good. We have Sandler, we use spin selling, we use challenger sale. They have all these different methodologies, all these frameworks, all these tools, all these scripts. When you're not able to pick up the tools, whatever the tools were, when you really rev up and supercharge your sales leadership, does it not take any sales training investment that they've made and make that blossom and pay off even more? So talk about sales leadership training and effectiveness versus, oh no, we've already bought into this sales methodology or that sales methodology. But if people aren't performing, talk about that leadership gap.
Well, to me, sales and leadership go together like hand in glove. You can't be a great leader unless you can sell, and you can't sell unless you're a great leader. Because as a sales leader, one of your jobs is to sell your team on doing X, whatever the X is. So when I go into a company, I will ask what sales training they're using. And I will say, let's work with that together. Again, I always try to partner up together because I don't want them to think that what they're doing doesn't make sense or that they've invested money that they're throwing away now, because that's not what I'm not doing that. I'm not coming in to do sales training. I'm talking about how do you become a more effective leader? There are some qualities that women have. First of all, women build relationships better than men. I know lots of men that build great relationships, but I'm telling you that women are known for building relationships. So how do you get your female sales leaders to build better relationships? Okay, we talk about that. We talk about the soft skills more than the hard skills. The hard skills are what gets you that position in the first place, but the soft skills are what's going to keep you there and elevate you and get you promoted. So we talk about the fact, like, how do you talk to your team? How do you encourage them to do X, Y, and Z? What's the generosity of your time that you're giving them? How do you give them, courage and passion and all of these things? Because it's different than sales training. It's like when they used to bring me into the company that I used to work for, I could do all the sales training because I knew all the products, but I didn't do that. I talked about the sales process in a different way, as opposed to talking about product knowledge. And that's what their sales training usually is. Okay, so let's take this product and break it down. Even, I love Sandler training. I do. I love it. And I know lots of people that have their franchise. It's different. It's different. And they'll also always tell me, it's different when you're talking about women, because men and women are different. And men and women listen differently. They learn differently. They ask questions differently. They do all things differently. So it's different than doing typical sales training, but I never discourage them from using it. Because we talk about, building relationships, or how do you structure a team so they're more involved and engaged, and collaboration is the new competition, and influence by persuading and sharing information, all of that kind of stuff, they don't teach in sales training.
Spot on. Oh my gosh. So this is really a force multiplier for whatever sales training they've already invested in. And it's a complement and a supplement that will take whatever that methodology happens to be and multiply its effectiveness, because now we're unleashing the leadership layer.
Right. And I also will always ask who is in charge of sales training. And I meet with them first anyway, because I want them to know that I am not taking their position and I'm not taking what they're doing and kicking it out. I want to work together. Show me what you're doing and let's see how I can make it. So not only does it encourage and engage more, but it also will be giving them another piece of it. So we're going to push it all. So it's going to go up and watch the success go up, because now people are engaged and they're interacting and they understand what the quality is of this sales training while it's incorporated with what I'm talking about. And so usually they're okay with it. There's been one or two that are like, yeah, I know, but am I going to get fired? I'm like, of course not. And I basically tell them, I don't want your job. That's not why I'm here. I want to make your job easier.
Yes, I know. Terrific episode here, but have you seen our latest web training? Oh my goodness, pop over there right now, or as soon as you're done listening to this episode, it's doitmarketing.com/webinar. See you over there. Back to the good stuff.
I would love to hear your take on sales leadership burnout. So when a sales leader or even a senior sales leader is looking at the leadership layer immediately beneath them, what are some symptoms? What are some warning signs of sales leadership burnout that would indicate to them, wait a minute, this is heading in the wrong direction. We need to turn things around, or we need to make some changes?
Well, first, I would say that there's disengagement. They don't want to be involved anymore, or they're taking a step backwards, or they're not available, or what they used to do is different. They've changed the way they're doing things. When somebody changes the way that they do things, or the system that they did, or whatever, that's always a red flag. Something is going on. It may not be anything bad, but there's something going on. The other piece of it is that they're not engaged with their team. They're not listening to their team. Their team is falling apart. Their retention is in the tubes because people are not staying. And when they've already decided that they're leaving or they've had it, they've already quit. They haven't necessarily given you their resignation, but they're already quitting. They're not doing anything that they're supposed to be doing. So what happens? The team is uninspired. The team becomes feeling isolated. Nobody's doing anything. Now the numbers are down, retention is down, and so everything falls apart. But you just have to watch for the difference in their natural system, their natural schedule. They're different. I can tell you when somebody's leaving. I can tell you because I would watch it and I would just go up and I would say to them, what's really going on? Tell me what's really going on. And some would be honest and some wouldn't. But I knew they were leaving, so I was already prepared for it. But I just say it's their behavior. You just have to watch the behavior. They don't care anymore. They're not passionate. They don't care. They don't care what the numbers are. Oh, big deal. No, it's just this week. It's just one day or whatever.
And that's kind of like the silent killer of sales performance, isn't it?
Without question. And it could be your biggest producer. And you have to watch that as well, because what happens with them is they feel like you'll never get rid of them. So they could do whatever they want. And when they feel like, showing up again, they show up again. But sometimes you have to uninvite them. And sometimes the best thing you could possibly do, yes, you lose business for a little while, but your other people are looking, saying, if they would get rid of him or her, or they've been watching that you haven't done anything in a while. And now they're saying, great, they're finally doing something. It's almost like when, you get rid of a partner or spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend and they go, I don't know how you lasted so long. That's what this reminds me of.
Talk a little bit about some of the challenges around sales leadership in this kind of virtual and remote sales leadership environment. I mean, in-person is back to some extent, but we're in this kind of post-pandemic kind of sort of hybrid, sort of back, sort of not. What are some opportunities and what are some dangers where things might fall between the cracks with virtual and remote sales leadership?
Yeah, I call it where's Waldo, because we have no idea where we are any day of the week. The benefit is that you can have a meeting with your entire team virtually at the same time. Okay, so it's not like you can't. The danger is when you don't engage people. Even when, there's somebody Okay, let's do hybrid. So there's 3 people in the office and there's 3 people remote. If the people remote don't feel like they're part of the team, you're going to lose them without question. If the people that are remote are not part of a project, you still have to include them. You still have to make them feel like they are part of, because especially women, we want to belong. And when you make us feel like we don't belong anymore, then we don't belong. A lot of people say that they can't create the relationships when it's virtual, but you can, because we've done it. We've done it for 2 years now. So that's gone already. But you still have to make sure that what you're asking people to do remotely, you have to inspire them. You have to meet with them on a regular basis. They have to know that they are still part of. What you don't want to do is micromanage. And I'm reading these articles every single day where people are saying, oh my God, they're spying on me. I can't even, get up from my desk. And that used to be, years ago, they would do that in a lot of the bigger, the pharma companies and whatever. You had to log in. If you logged out, you were whatever. Companies are still doing that. So I would say, let's not do that. People have to be able to work on the honor system. And there's one thing that, we've talked about a lot is forget the hours, look at the work. So what if, from 8 to 5, they did some work or whatever, but after hours, they decided to really, finish that proposal and it's ready the next morning. Who cares if it was done at 7 o'clock or between 8 and 5? So you have to be able to trust your people. And I always say the one thing you have to do is you have to know your people. You have to know your people. What drives them? What inspires them? What makes them absolutely crazy? And work with that. So when you are virtual, you can still have this conversation. You can say, hey, David, I wish you would have done this. Okay, so let's talk about that. What does that look like? And you can say, well, that is what I did. So here, it's ready. So I just know your people and let them be part of it. That's the biggest thing that we're losing now is the connection. We feel disengaged. We feel like people don't care.
Talk a little bit about some of the risks around retention. So obviously, when we lose a sales leader, it is disruptive on all kinds of levels. Even when we lose a salesperson, that is disruptive. Business leaves, the relationships leave. The person says, hey, I'm following you to your new company. On the retention side, because we're talking about the great resignation, the great reshuffling, right? Talent is at an absolute premium. And I think sales talent and sales leadership talent is at a particular premium. Folks that are not paying attention to retention, what are some of the risks there? And what else is at risk of leaving out the front doors?
Well, I think if you don't care about people leaving, you are living under a rock because there are so many people. I don't even know the numbers anymore. But what I do find is that when people leave, especially when you're in a leadership position, an executive position, you are, like you said, leaving with relationships, but you're also leaving with IP. Okay, you're leaving with their confidential intellectual property you're taking with you. Okay, so now the next company is like, well, I've got all the stuff from such and such because now you're here. So that's something that's walking out the door. The other thing that's walking out is you're leaving. What happens to your team? Because your team is now there by themselves. And so one by one, they're going to also leave. So you have to be really careful to make sure that your leadership team also feels inspired, because women at a level, especially what the level we're talking about, they feel isolated. They're not part of any group. They don't feel like they can talk to anybody. They don't share any best practices with anybody. They don't even know how to advance their priorities if they wanted. They can't because they feel like they are lonely. Again, that lonely leader. So you have to be careful. Retention is at an all-time high, a premium. And most people, they don't really think that they're ever going to lose anybody. No one's going to leave us. We've got the name, or they've got the benefits, or they've got the dollars, or whatever. I left, and I had a big position, and I had a big salary, and I had great benefits, and I had a big expense account, but I left because it wasn't right for me. And, they tried to give me more money, but that's not what I wanted. So you have to really listen and watch people. You'll see when people are starting to, move away because they don't want to be part of it. There are numbers for retention. If you watch salespeople, I'm not talking about leaders yet, salespeople, you watch, first year retention is high. Second year retention is usually in the 70s, and third year retention is usually 30s and 40s. Why? Because people don't care after a while. They're always busy recruiting. And that's not what it's at. You have to make sure that you take care of those that are there and bring in some more, but take care of those that are there. And people are not doing that. Same thing with the leadership. They're there. They think they've got you. And, oh, well, oh my goodness, you're leaving? I wouldn't have guessed that. You really have to watch. I always say just watch and observe, be an observer, and then step in when you have to. Because if I saw that somebody that was under me was ready to leave, I should have known. I might have known. And if I didn't say anything, shame on me. I used to sit people down and say, okay, now tell me really what's happening here. And they would say, well, I don't want to do this anymore, blah, 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 blah. And if I couldn't find another position, I would help them leave because I didn't want them to think that I was mad or anything, because I wasn't mad. I would never get mad. I would just help them leave. So it was an easier exit.
So you have what I think is an absolutely brilliant solution to so many of these problems. It's an in-house kind of cohort-based situation. Tell us about what that program looks like, because we talked about retention, recruiting, performance, results, culture, engagement, making people feel worthy, making them feel like they belong here, showing them that they have a career path. What is the super duper solution that you are now helping companies with to hit all of those marks?
So it's called the Boardroom, and it really is for executive women in sales. That's who it's for. I want to make sure that we have the right women in the right room. It is by invitation only. Everybody is carefully vetted. And so what happens is the women in the group have high quality peers. They will have this group of women around them that are in the same position. Then what happens is that you get to have these great connections, even within your own company. And that's where you get these $1 million ideas. Like, oh, I never thought of it that way, whatever. It also lowers the burnout, stress, and it helps you to know that you have other women around you, other women that would have the same challenges as you have. And maybe it's somebody that's in the VP of sales, and maybe it's somebody that's the EVP of sales. Or, it's just that you have these women that you can talk to, and it's a safe, confidential community, and you're learning from each other. And again, you're not isolated, you're not uninspired, you're not lonely. It's a year-long program, and there's so many great pieces of it. We meet on a regular basis. We have great resources. There's all kinds of reading and case studies and everything that you would need in order to make sure that the road in front of you is open, it's available, and you have the resources that you need when you have a question. We also are there, and I think this is a big thing for women, to help you celebrate, because nobody celebrates. Nobody celebrates the great things that they do. So one thing for sure that I'm committed to executive women in sales, how they grow, how they lead, how they, are ready to ignite their passion or reignite their passion to get their journey going. And we also give you the strategies that become important to making you the most effective that can help you grow personally. And one of the things I do want to say is that we're not always invited to the table. Let's just get that clear. But I want to make sure that when someone asks what you bring to the table, you can be confident with your response, because sometimes you bring the table. So it's all in helping you with your confidence and the imposter syndrome and the way that you can feel about yourself, because it's so important for you to be confident and so important for you to be excited and passionate, because that's part of the growing and that's part of the leadership that we bring together at the table.
So important. Oh my gosh, for sure. Well, I've got two final questions here as we wrap up. The final question is, how can people get connected and stay connected to more Judy Hoberman brilliance? But even before we get to that, looking at the entire concept of women sales leaders, what it takes to be successful, what it takes to get re-engaged, re-inspired, recommitted, what would be one core concept that you would love our listeners to take away for that idea?
I would say be intentional. Be intentional with everything that you do, whether it's being intentional about the level that you want to be, the position that you want to be intentional with the things that you're asking your team to do, be intentional with the way that you lead and the way that you introduce new concepts, be intentional with the market, be intentional with everything that you do, because once you are intentional, you're very focused, and you will see things that are out of focus and you'll get rid of them, because once you're intentional, the blinders come on. And I just think that being intentional is something that most people don't do. They do things just to do it. So I would say that would be my concept.
Tremendous. All right. Well, tell us, how do we tap in to more Judy Hoberman brilliance. What resources, links, gifts, what can we give people? We're going to link this up in the show notes. Okay. So you do not need to stop your car. You do not need to write anything down. It's going to be directly under this episode at thesellingshow.com. What can we leave people with and how should they connect with you?
So the best way to connect with me would be on LinkedIn, and it's under Judy Hoberman. And there's new information like 3, 4, 5 times a week. Plus we have a LinkedIn newsletter that's also connected on my profile. You can see all the goodness there. And we're all over social media under Judy Hoberman or Selling in a Skirt. My website is Selling in a Skirt. So it's all there. Really, it's all there.
Tremendous. And the ebook, I believe we have also 5 ways to sell like only a woman can.
Yes, it is the Skirt Strategy Guide and Workbook. And it is brand spanking new. So just know that, brand new, completely updated. And it's so amazing. It's 5 different ways that you can sell like only a woman can. And I promise you, they are pointed and there are examples and there's places for you to take notes. It's excellent. I'm happy with that.
Awesome. And again, that link directly under this episode, click the link, connect with Judy, go to LinkedIn, look at the newsletter. Such a pleasure to have you back. We have to have you back again, probably sooner than another 60 or 70 episodes. So we'll keep tabs on Boardroom. We'll keep tabs on you. We'll keep tabs on all the wonderful projects that you're up to. And thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. Always excited to see you.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.